Also awaiting delivery.
Awaiting delivery. How about the PABX telephone system?
Visa. Visa. How about Dave Yabanis?
But we acquired it from the Office of the President ICT.
How about the standard telephones and the standard white telephones and black telephones?
Also. Yeah.
So can you please submit to me all these, if it was procured through the central procurement system, can you indicate there and give me the certificate that it was bought through the mode, and if it was done by the Office of the President, where was the bid documents, if it was bidded out in 2010, and if it was bidded by you, can you just submit the bidding documents?
We'll do that.
Where does the telephone lines fall under? Which part of your budget? Wherein you were able to procure BlackBerry curves?
Communication expenses.
Communication expenses. Is it in the budget?
I believe it is.
And kindly submit the contract, please, with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to ask you also, with regards to your agency, sometime in March, your annual procurement came out and then you decided to buy laptops, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then sometime in May, you had the first, that's where you decided to come out with a publication to say that you were interested to buy laptops.
Yes, ma'am. Notice posting of the invitation bid on field trips on May 12th.
And which publication did you put out your ad?
Taliba on May 19th.
Why is Taliba the most popular tabloid that if you put your advertisement there, everybody can see it?
Well, the procurement rules require the publication in a newspaper of general circulation, and Taliba fits that. As to why they chose Taliba over People's Journal or others, it's, I'm not aware of exactly.
So who does that? It's which part of your agency?
The bids and awards.
The bids and awards. Because I was wondering, I don't want to look down on any publication, but I'm just wondering why they chose Taliba. Taliba is a tabloid, right?
Yes.
Do you know what is the circulation of Taliba?
No, I'm not aware.
Does anybody from your communications group know? Because considering that you're part of messaging, then you should be aware of that. Because, you know, you want to put out the message of the president to a vast and wide range of readers.
Yes.
So I would assume that your office will be familiar what is the ratings of all the tabloids, newspapers, radio, TV, who's the number one, the number two. So I would like to ask you.
Well, those numbers, ma'am, are contested.
But then in a general sense,
yeah. The newspapers use different methods to determine their readership, and that is normally contested by the other readership. So what you only have really are estimates, and any estimate you come up with will be contested by the competitors of that newspaper.
But all that, I'm not asking you about what they think, who is number one among them. You are the head of the communications group. So I'm asking you, in your opinion, who do you think is the number one? If you have to put it in general publication, who is that?
That would depend on how you define number one.
In terms of readership, that if you put it out in the tabloid, because I think Taliba is a tabloid, that most people will be able to have a chance to read your notice, and everybody will be able to participate. So I'm just asking you, in your opinion, since you're the head of the communications group, and I think that you're all young and supposedly bright in your agency, you would know a simple answer to that question.
Well, I think I understand that the market claims are in the six figures, meaning at least 100,000 readers.
Also, is Taliba 100,000 readers?
I think that's what some of the people in the market claim.
Because I'm just wondering, these are just laptops. And nobody, according to Miss Balte, when she came out in TV, or was it in print, oh no, the press conference, that nobody participated in the first bid. That's why it was now called a failed bidding. Because nobody participated. And I'm just wondering, because I saw naman your ad eh. I have a copy. When you go to Green Hills, or you go to any mall, there's a particular floor there that is only dedicated for computers. And if you gave your if you're only your bright girls at the back, gave the circulation of the ad to each and every computer store there, then all of them will be able to participate in your bid.
I'm not sure if that would be allowed under the rules.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is, it's impossible that no one will capture an ad for laptop computers, because even in the far-flung barangays in the provinces, that is the easiest thing to bid out.
Unfortunately,
They don't even have to go to Manila just to procure their computers and laptops in the provinces. Because if that is the case, everybody will spend a fortune just to come to Manila to get a bid coming from the suppliers in Manila. So I'm wondering, the first bidding was failed because nobody participated in the bid. You came up with a second bidding, still no one participated in the bid. You said nobody answered the call of the Office of the President for laptop computers, which I find very strange kasi sa amin lang dito, ang dami-dami nag-aalok sa amin na kung ano-ano dito. And I'm sure, even under the Office of the President, it would be the same. I mean, that's why I'm wondering, how come you have two failed biddings just for laptop computers? It's not ano eh, buti sana kung sabihin natin specialty item yan, na iilan lang ang nagke-carry ng produktong yun. Pero ito, laptop lang eh. Nakita ko yung specifications. I'm sure all kinds of models can come up with that specification. They can even a basic unit, pwede mo dagdagan ng features yan just to comply with what is in your bid documents. But how come there's two failed biddings?
Honorable Magsaysay, you're at the 12.5-minute mark, over the 10-minute mark, but we'll allow you to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, because I think you would rather that I ask it here than I ask more questions in the plenary, right? Because you're the one defending their budget.
if I may answer, I really do not know why the bidders did not bid. You'd have to ask them themselves. All I know is that the law requires us to follow a process, and we followed that process to the letter. Let me give you an example. This acquisition was below 2 million pesos, which means technically we did not even have to publish it in the newspaper of general circulation, but we did. For the sake of transparency, we did. The other thing is, you cannot simply ask anybody off the street to supply computers. There is an accreditation process that goes beyond us, and we are only allowed to acquire from accredited suppliers. So what did we do? We placed the ad in the newspaper, which was not, again, required, but we did it anyway. We also went to Phil Jeps, which was a requirement. And because of those we did follow the process, but there were two failed biddings. Again, we can only answer for whether or not the process was followed. If you want to ask why nobody bid for it, then I would think that that's a question better asked to the suppliers and not to us.
I think your answer is out of line, Mr. Carandang. Second, I would just like to ask you, you had a negotiated bid, and it was very clear that you wanted Apple Macros, right? Because it was Apple Macros that you were buying.
No, ma'am. Again, let me clarify and explain what the facts are. My specifications, as discussed with my people, were this. Number one, not susceptible to viruses. Number two, easily portable. Number three, long battery time. Long battery time. Within those specifications, I really was indifferent as to what the brand was, but I wanted those three specifications. Again, not susceptible to virus. Number two, easily portable. And number three, long battery life. And so those were the parameters that I made when I asked the office to scout around for computers.
Then how come you did not get any supplier that would offer you another kind of model unit with the same specifications that you needed, except they're not called Apple. Probably they may be called HP or Linus or other laptops, which may be cheaper.
Again, ma'am, let me correct you, we did, but they did not fall within the threshold of the price that we were looking at. I have your list. Model Lenovo ThinkPad W710DS, HP Pavilion DV7, Sony Vaio VGN AR38GP, and MacBook Pro. These are brands of laptops with similar specifications, which probably would have complied with the requests, with the requirements that I had. If I may just point out, the Lenovo is 145,000, the HP Pavilion is 130,000, the Sony is 249,000, and the MacBook Pro was 126,000.
What was the, why did you need a laptop? What was the specification you needed it for editing, I'm sure, for doing messaging? Did you need to do a movie? Did you need to do video editing? What were the requirements that you needed? That's why you had to have a special kind of laptop.
Okay, we do a lot of graphics work. Some of the departments in my office actually have done the branding, the corporate branding for the office of the president. We can furnish you with samples of some of the brochures that we have come up with. The PPP brochure that the president brings with him to when he visits overseas, that was laid out by and designed by us. The billboard signs of DPWH and other public works, the template was made by us. So there's a lot of graphics work that's being done.
Graphics.
That's only one department, ma'am.
Can you provide the committee sample of those?
We will be very happy to do that.
Okay, those are one of the examples. You're telling me, I was, because of this controversy, a lot of people started blogging different kinds of brands with the same specifications, and someone even told me that if you go to PC Corner, WWPC Corner, they have a laptop which is only 45,995, which can do graphics. It has a drop-in camera if you need to do video. It also has it's a Intel Core i7-2630M, which is the newest. It also has an Intel HM65 Express chipset. In other words, whatever specification you put there, they also found other suppliers who could provide to you the same kind of function, but at a much cheaper rate. Because 66,000 as compared to 46,000 are is 20,000 below. And maybe the difference, Mr. Carandang, most of you came from the private sector. When you want to start working for government, you're already bounded by frugality, which is one of the core policies of President Aquino. When he first sat, he said, matuto tayo maging matipid. Ayaw kong maging eksaherado ang ating administrasyon. But apparently, in your case, instead of buying a laptop, which can do the same functions, at 46,000, you decided to choose an Apple Mac Pro at 66,000. And if you're in charge of messaging, because of this controversy, what was the kind of message that you elicited from the Filipino people who are your bosses? You are now known in one blog as the Imelda Marcos of laptop computers. Is that the kind of message that you want to create for yourself and for your department? Because that message did not come from me, that came from the Filipino people. And if you're in charge of messaging, you're supposed to project an image of frugality because you represent the office of the president. But in this case, did you do that?
I believe we did.
You believe you did. And if you believe you did, then why would the Filipino people who are your bosses, who pay your tax, who through taxes pay your salaries, and who through their taxes give you your budget, called you an Imelda Marcos of laptop computers? No offense,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes, on what for it?
May I please ask the lady to stop attributing Imelda Marcos, who is a member of this body, any connotation of luxury or extravagance, because a colleague cannot refer to another colleague as a matter of course.
Still point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, it was not I who coined that word. It was somebody else. But that's why I said no offense meant to our colleague, Imelda Marcos.
Precisely, but still I want to invoke our role not to refer to a colleague in terms of, especially we come from the same province.
I do. I understand, Congressman Farinas.
And your father-in-law is a good friend of
Exactly,
yours.
Congressman Farinas. That's why, you know, much to my regret, there was a group that called him that. Maybe the group should not have called him Imelda Marcos, but should have called him probably Imel Defeat, because that is a coined word already.
We don't mind the group using that name, but not a colleague.
Well, you know, I did not mean to, I do not wish to debate with Congressman Farinas, but all I'm trying to say is, I am just stressing a point here. That's why I had a qualifier and I said, no offense meant to our colleague, Representative Imelda Marcos, because here in the House of Representatives, we are not supposed to treat each other with disrespect. And I never put her name out in this hearing as a matter of disrespect.
Thank you.
Because I always respect my colleagues, and I also respect my adversaries, even though sometimes they are too arrogant and they're too disrespectful to elected members of the House of Representatives. My next point, you are a part of messaging. You are supposed to give the image of the President, say his, communicate to the public. I remember that when the surveys of the President went down to positive 46, they were giving reasons why do you think the message, why do you think the President's SWS survey go down? And even the President himself said, probably there is something wrong with the messaging because hindi nalalaman o na umaabot sa sambayan ng Pilipino yung magagandang ginagawa ko sa pamahalaan. And siguro merong problema ang messaging. So whose department is messaging? That's yours, correct? And even the presidential sister, Chris Aquino, also, when she was asked, ano kaya ang reason kung bakit bumaba ang survey ng Pangulo? Dati, positive 90 siya, ngayon positive 46 na lang. Ang sinagot din po ni presidential sister Chris Aquino, siguro may problema rin kasi ang messaging. So, sino naman po ang messaging? Hindi ba? Kayo din mo yun. So these are people who are close to you, who you represent. The President talking, the presidential sister talking, and they are blaming the messaging that you are not doing a good job in bringing down the good news to the grassroots level. Kaya bumababa ang kanyang rating. Hindi nalalaman ni Juan de la Cruz na mga boss ni Pinoy yung kanyang magagandang ginagawa. So in this aspect, na dalawang tao ang nagsabi, kahit yung Pangulo ng Pilipinas ang nagsalita na, don't you think that you have failed in your mandate of providing the good message to the Filipino people? Don't you think that you have failed in communicating the good ideas, good programs, and good policies of President Aquino? Because he himself said the problem is in the messaging. His sister herself said the problem is in the messaging. What can you say?
Was that a rhetorical question, or did you actually want me to answer that?
I asked you, di ba? Don't be arrogant when you're being asked. I'm warning you, Secretary Carandang. You are not in ABS-CBN. If before you had the temerity to put and insult elected members of the House when you were in ABS-CBN, so to say, you're in the other side of the shoe right now, and you're the one being questioned by legislators. May I remind you, arrogance has no place in public service. And if you're going to be arrogant, I don't think you should stay any longer in public service. I don't think your president, is that the kind of message that your president wants to impart to the Filipino people? That his secretary in charge of communications and messaging is an arrogant person who does not even know how to respect the office of the president and the House of Representatives. What's so different about, not unless I'm sure you know how to speak English. What did I ask you? What can you say? So are you going to be arrogant to say? Is that a question? Mr. Carandang, you still have a long way to go as far as maturity and wisdom is concerned. I'm sorry to say I have to put you in your place. Because, you know, your kind of breed of public servant has no place in public service. Kami nga, elected officials na kami, but we know how to be humble. We know how to answer our colleagues. We know how to be humble to our constituents. Kasi alam namin, kami yung pag-upo namin dito bilang kongresista, hiniram lang namin itong mandate na doon sa mga taong nagtiwala at bumoto sa amin. Kaya wala kaming karapatan maging arogante. Ikaw, appointed official ka lang. Anong karapatan mo maging arogante ka? Yung pagiging arogante mo at ang pagiging spoiled brat mo, iiwan mo sa bahay mo. Pero once pumasok ka sa opisina ng Office of the President, matuto ka maging humble. Kasi hindi na sarili mo nire-represent mo. Ang nire-represent mo rito yung Pangulo ng Pilipinas. And maybe tama ho si Pangulo Aquino. Maybe tama si Chris Aquino. Na talagang may problema ang messaging. Kasi kung ganyang klase ang sasagot dito sa committee namin at ganyang klase ang sumasagot sa sambayan ng Pilipino, eh talagang imbis na matuwa sila sa Pangulo Aquino, lalo silang magagalit.
Honorable Magsaysay, we're at the 20th minute mark, so kindly wind up.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask more time because I'm telling you, if you do not give me more time, this will drag...
Mr. Chairman, move to suspend. Mr. Chairman, move to suspend.
Again,
Session suspended.